What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shuggy from Shook Earth Media. Today we are back with Star Trek Picard Season 3. Is this the best episode yet? I think it might be. We got a really intriguing storyline, a lot of intrigue, mysteries, and there's a huge conspiracy storyline that I think is one of the coolest, most interesting, and captivating storylines I've seen in Star Trek ever. You know, not even just new Trek, but all of Star Trek. I think that this is definitely in the conversation. Definitely let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And with that, we're going to just break down the episode. I'm really excited about this show, man. I love this show. So, it's a huge episode. We start off with a kind of dream scene that sets up a mystery that we don't even explain at the end of this episode. We get hints at it, and we've gotten hints at it in previous episodes where we kind of saw dream scenes where our man Jack here has been seeing these vines in the background. He's been seeing visions of a red door, and he's been hearing a woman's voice, which I now in this episode think is Beverly's voice, saying "find me." So there's something going on. There's something inside him, some type of entity trying to take him over. And we see this opening scene of him breaking into the bridge, killing everybody on the bridge in cold blood, and it's a chilling scene. One of the darkest scenes I think that we've ever seen in Star Trek, aside from earlier seasons of this series. But this was very shocking to me, and definitely sets up a mystery that I need to see solved. I need to know what happens next. And then we see Jack wake up in his room, and he is holding a gun. And so that implies like kind of a sleepwalking state where he was comatose, but this thing inside him was taking him over. And we see him get fully taken over at the end of the episode. And it's a very scary situation for our man Jack to be in. So I'm really curious about what's going on there, but we don't get any concrete answers in this episode. Now, the next big storyline is the resolution of what's going to happen to Picard and Riker for coming onto the ship and taking it over under false pretenses. And I think that they really spin this storyline completely on its head. You think it's going to go one way, and then it ends up setting up this massive conspiracy storyline where Starfleet is taken over. But we're going to get into that a little bit later. So this first scene here, I love the Captain Shaw here. He gets, of course, the duty to be the captain. He gets reinstated by Will, and I love that he's gone from villain, or at least antagonist, to comic relief. This episode, he's primarily sarcastic comic relief, and I think it's hilarious. I love every moment with this Captain Shaw guy. And he reinstates Seven, and he also he calls her Seven too, so he's showing her that respect that she asked for in one of the previous episodes. And I love that he leaves the room and says that you guys need to get your bullshit story straight. So I love this scene here. I think it's absolutely great. And now we're here with a family reunion of sorts with Picard and Beverly and, of course, Jack. And we see instantly, based on the scene from the beginning, there's something up with Jack. He's kind of distracted. He's tired. There's something off about Jack. We know that right away. And then basically at the end, Picard says to Jack, "Why don't you consider joining Starfleet?" And Picard basically makes it known that he's going to do everything he can to make sure that his son is okay. And he's going to try to persuade Starfleet to let him go. He's not going to be locked up or anything like that, even though he's wanted for various crimes throughout the galaxy or whatever. So I like that aspect of it too. You know, you got the family aspect that Picard wants to do the right thing for his son. But this question at the end, will Jack join Starfleet, I think is a really great point there. But he hesitates. He says that he doesn't want to join Starfleet. It's not right for him. But by the end of the episode, based on everything going on with him in this episode, I think that answer might actually be yes. He wants to say yes, but there's something inside him that will not let him make that final step because he's afraid of what might happen to him, what he might do. He's afraid of these thoughts that he's having. And I think it's a really interesting dilemma here. And, you know, I think we're going to get deeper into that later in this season, I am certain, but I think it's a really intriguing concept, you know, people's some people might have certain thoughts that they can't control, and I think it's a really interesting thing to delve into there. So and Picard, you can see his disappointment when he turns back around, and he wants to say something, but he can't find the words, and then he just walks away. And then right at the end of this scene, Jack is reminded of the dream scene at the beginning by spotting somebody he killed in the first scene. And in the first scene, she said that she knows who or what Jack is. So I'm really, really intrigued by that. And my first gut instinct was Changeling, but it's got to be something deeper than that. It's got to be bigger than that, especially since all the Changelings, they need him for something else. So I'm really, really curious what that is. He is the secret weapon that they've been looking for. So now we're back with Worf and Raffi, and I'm loving the Worf parts of this episode. So far, this kind of storyline, this B storyline, it's been maybe the weaker part of the season. Not that it's a bad aspect of the season, but just everything else in the season has been so strong. This episode is the one where now we're seeing why this plot line is in here. It's starting to connect with the larger story, and I think it's all going to pay off really, really well. There's some huge payoffs with this episode. Worf is my favorite character, and they did the fake out. I freaked out in the middle there, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So I like this starting fight scene with him and Raffi. They're training together, and they're pointing out each other's weaknesses and fighting, and Raffi says that Worf's weakness is the talking. I guess his penchant for lecturing and wanting to impart knowledge on people. And her weakness is recklessness and stuff like that, short-sightedness. And I think that all makes sense with how she's been characterized this season. Full disclosure, I don't know a lot about Raffi from previous seasons because I didn't watch season 2, but I only read like summaries of it, so I don't know much about her. But so far I'm kind of liking her in this episode, and I like kind of the sarcastic relationship she has with Worf. And so now they're talking with their Starfleet handler, who we find out who that is. But it turns out that the Starfleet handler that they have, who is of course Ro, is not in full control at this moment, and they are being denied access to the station where the portal device was stolen from, because they need to get there so they can find what was actually stolen. The portal device was just a distraction from what they really got there. So we're going to find out more about that soon, I'm assuming. I like that we set up some of these things earlier on, and they're going to have big payoffs. A lot of times in modern media, a lot of people have been calling it mystery box syndrome, where there's just a piece of information is just withheld from us, and it's more of a MacGuffin than anything. I think that these are genuine mysteries, very intriguing, and I think that there's probably room to speculate, especially people who are more lore experts on Star Trek than me might have some better ideas, and I'm really, really curious what people have to say about that in the comment section. If you have any theories, would love to hear it. So, yeah, I'm liking this setup. We're going back to the criminal planet, and we need to find the guy that Sneed was working with. So that's their plan, and they show up, and everybody runs away. Everybody's scared of them because they killed Sneed. And I like that aspect of the storyline. Word catches on fast. But that being said, this is a criminal underworld, and I'm assuming they all have weapons. So this is the one thing I might nitpick. Like, I mean, everybody, at the end of the day, guns are the great equalizer, right? How scary are they really when, of course, everybody has phasers in their pocket? Everybody can take out everybody else. Now, maybe they're scared of the Starfleet connection. Maybe that's what the real fear is. But that's the one part of the episode. I did like it, but that's one thing I could see nitpicking. So now we got the USS Intrepid here. They are here to potentially court-martial Picard and Riker. So, yeah, now they're here. They're in the transporter pod. They are on their way to meet with the commander. And I really I love this scene. Again, another Shaw scene where he is the comic relief. He is humming, and he says he's feeling chipper, and it's not because they're about to get their asses handed to them. That part is really funny. I'm really loving Shaw's parts of this episode, and he basically points out every mistake that they made from the Next Generation series, and I think it's really hilarious. All the references are definitely well earned, and I think it's really funny. That's something that we always, as fans, kind of tease them for that. So I love bringing that element into the show. So I think it's really great. And here we get the first big surprise of this episode. I was not at all expecting, I don't know if it was in the trailers or something, I didn't know Ro was going to show up. I'm genuinely was very surprised by this, and it was well earned, and they use her character so well in this episode. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time. I think they said 30 years in the show itself, and that sounds about right based on when the original series was on. So I really like that we're, after all this time, delving into this storyline. Of course, right, she was basically not trusted at first by Starfleet. Picard brought her in and mentored her, and then she betrayed them for the Maquis, who are a rebel group who were born in the Federation and weren't happy with the way things were being run, and she ended up joining them after she was ordered to infiltrate them. So we've been kind of waiting for this moment, and I really do wonder why we haven't gotten this storyline up to this point. You know, whether the actress was otherwise busy or whatever. I haven't looked into it, but now that I've seen it, it's like, wow, this has been on the table all this time, and here we finally got a resolution to that. But I love this imposing image here of them showing up, and it really seems like seems like that Picard and Riker are seen as guilty by Starfleet right away. She's basically reading them their Miranda rights, more or less. So it's really an interesting storyline. Makes us worried right away. And then here we are with there's Seven comes to Jack and says, "It was my job to hide you." Picard asks for one last favor in an earlier scene, and that favor is to make sure that Jack gets away. She gives him a Starfleet uniform, and this is, of course, what he was wearing in the first scene. So he's all worried about that even more, and I think that that's also a brilliant part of the storyline. I'm really loving the mystery we're setting up with him. So here we are, basically doing an autopsy on the changeling, and it has somehow managed to retain its form in as I believe her name. I forget what her name is offhand, but LaForge's daughter. She is here as well. You can't see her because my face is covering her. But the funny part where she throws up at the sign of her own, supposedly her own corpse, is shocking. And they cut into the body and realize that the changelings have evolved to be able to replicate individual organs, and only once they chop open the individual organs can they will it actually melt down. Now this definitely implies that there's something new happening. Beverly says evolution, but evolution happens over many thousands of years, so there's something that expedited this evolution, and I'm assuming that maybe that is what they took from this station, but this is just me speculating at this point. Something that speeds up time or evolution or something. I'm assuming we'll find out very shortly, but I really like the theme of evolution. It comes back again later in the Worf storyline. I think is really interesting. So here we're setting up for the court-martial or interrogation scene with Picard and Ro. We're talking about how we can't really we're basically reliving, for people who don't know the story, what happened to her and how she betrayed them and how she held Picard at phaser point, if that's the right term for it. Basically just catching the audience up, but also reminding us that Picard is still pissed off about this after all this time, and how could he not be? It was a huge betrayal of trust. So this scene has a lot of tension in it, and basically right away I'm already thinking she's a changeling as soon as we learn about the organ thing and the evolution. But I was genuinely surprised that she wasn't, and maybe that's predictable to some people, but I was surprised by it because I was, my gut instinct is to go with the most predictable thing. I'm used to modern Hollywood, okay? I thought they would do the most predictable thing, where she is the changeling, okay? But that's not what happened, and I think that that's much stronger that way. But I like how there's iciness between them at first. And here we got another scene with Jack kind of seemingly being taken over by this thing. He has another vision of him killing a Starfleet officer, and he's in the teleporter room. He doesn't seem to know why he's there, but in the vision, he wants to be sent away from Starfleet. And then he ends up waking up after that, and he's just kind of standing there in a really awkward moment. So, and now we're back at the criminal planet with Worf and Raffi, and Worf, of course, was sitting down, meditating, waiting for the right people to show up. So I like that cliffhanger, and then we come back, and we don't realize at first that they've had a plan. You know, Worf sent Raffi away with a kind of sniper rifle thing, and she's watching from afar, and there's kind of a hologram version of her in the scene next to him. So, you know, a clever little plan, but it turns out that the other guy was more clever, and I really like this Vulcan criminal overlord guy. He basically makes the argument that a criminal enterprise is logical because you can't have a utopia without crime. I would like to delve a little deeper into that, what the logic of that is, but, you know, I like the concept. I don't know that we've had a character like this as a Vulcan. I like him a lot. He's really cool and interesting. So yeah, we already talked about the autopsy scene, and just in time, Beverly gets word to Picard that he can't trust anybody because anybody could be a changeling. The new evolution of changeling can get past the blood test and can get past other security measures that they've put in since the Dominion War. These are things that they have put in place to detect changelings or shapeshifters. However, that's not working anymore, so he can't trust anybody, and with that, he turns around and won't answer her questions about his son. She's mostly interested in that, and we find out towards the end of the episode that she has this whole investigation going on about changelings infiltrating Starfleet. So we'll get into it now. We've kind of had a storyline like this in The Next Gen with a conspiracy storyline. It was a lot shorter. It did last like a whole season, more or less, or hints of it here, and then it was like a season finale or something earlier in the series. And I always liked that storyline, but thought it could have been executed better. Here we are doing it. This is a really intimidating storyline, and I have to wonder if this is supposed to be symbolic of Starfleet, the recent Star Trek iterations kind of being evil seemingly, or maybe it's supposed to be symbolic of how we fans feel that the franchise have been infiltrated. That's what it felt like as a fan watching the recent Star Trek installments. So now we're with the real Starfleet trying to root that out. So I don't know if it's supposed to be symbolic, but it feels like it to me. So I really like this scene between Ro and Picard, and now we see the people that Ro is traveling with are searching for Jack. So we now know based on that they are most likely changelings, even though Ro is, of course, asking about Jack as well. We now know that these two are changelings, and that leads even greater credence to the theory that Ro is also a changeling. So some really, really good sneaky trickery for us as an audience. I really like that. So now she has a change of plans, and she pulls out her phaser. Now I'm really thinking that she's a changeling, and now they're in the holodeck, and she asks Picard to play music so that there aren't recordings made of the conversation. And now we get to the real meat of the episode, a big dramatic scene. And I kind of like that we're back here at the bar. It kind of reminds me of the previous episode with the scene with Shaw. It seems like a lot of truths come out in this bar. And I kind of like that we keep coming back here yet over and over again. The real bar was where, you know, Will and Picard talked about Will's son being born. And I like that element, that the truth seems to come out. Of course, Picard, revealed to his son unwittingly in the previous episode, in the flashback, that he doesn't have a family and that he's never needed a family. So, like I said, the truth comes out here, and it's tying in with Guinan was always a person that they went to for guidance in the Next Generation series. So there's a lot of truth to this. Now, Picard's trying to test her to see if it's the real her, and he brings out all the emotions of betrayal, and he even speaks her language back to her. And he asks about the earring being gone. He asked about that in the previous scene, another thing that leads you to believe that she is a changeling. But I love that that comes back at the end. So this scene where it's basically revealed the emotions are real, and she is who she says she is, and she reveals the depth of the conspiracy going on. Starfleet is compromised. You see it on screen right there, and that means that, like I said, I think it's symbolic. But we've talked about that enough. Now we're back with Raffi and Worf, and they were discovered. The Raffi was discovered with the sniper rifle, and now they are at the mercy of this guy here, and they are forced to fight to the death. And I love this storyline. They got wagers going on, and they basically have a plan to get out of it by faking Worf's death, which I really love. Yeah, and here they bring up, back in the holodeck, they bring up the Frontier Day thing that's kind of been looming in the background. All the ship's fleets are going to do essentially parade, and that basically is going to be where the attack happens, or something big is going to happen on Frontier Day, and that's of course celebrating the anniversary of Starfleet. So I think it's really great. And then we get Raffi. I thought Worf was dead here because I heard from people reviewing it that the emotional thing happens in this episode. Turns out it happens later, but I thought the emotional thing in this moment was Worf dying, and I was about to flip out. This review tone would have been way different if Worf died here. I would have been pissed because he's my favorite character, okay? I don't want Worf to die, okay? That's non-negotiable for me. I don't want to see that. Okay, but I do like the fake out, in that he comes back, he takes out, he's fake, they take his body away, and that's another element of Klingons, that they don't really care about what happens to their corpses. So, the body's being shifted away. You think Raffi might say something about, like, hey, you can't do that, but she doesn't say anything because, of course, she knows what's really going on. And she stabbed him in the chest so that he bleeds, but not enough that he's going to die. And he has mastered the, I forget the word, but the technique to slow the heartbeat down to where it's imperceptible, which has been in Starfleet lore, or in Star Trek lore, for a long time, I'm pretty sure. So I like that element coming back. And now we're taking a look at this station. There's a sophisticated AI system that's security for the station, and he has the secret to getting in there, and he's going to give it to them because it's logical, considering that he has no other recourse at that moment. So I really like that. And then we have a tearful goodbye with Ro, and it's an emotional scene. I really love that, after all this time, they've come to an understanding. They understand each other more, and they say that Ro says that they wish they had time to get to know each other even better. And she slips him the earring that we've been hearing so much about, and it turns out that is where a bunch of secret data is stored. So I love that element of the episode. Now we have to convince Captain Shaw to run away from the Intrepid. Now this is a really big turning point for Shaw. He has to really trust our crew, even though he has every reason not to. The personal grief he has from being the survivor's guilt he has from the attack led by Locutus. He's got that element. He's got the fact that they were pretty much exploiting him from the very start. I really feel for this character at this point. I really like him now. So he's tempted to take Picard and put them in a cell, but he basically decides to trust them at the last moment. And what makes him trust them is the fact that the ship, or the shuttle with Ro on it, gets a bomb planted in it, and the changelings that were riding with her beam back aboard the Titan. So they planted an explosive on her ship, and she doesn't have time. They need to get closer to her to beam her aboard the ship, they add the element that there is something inhibiting the signal, which, you know, is a convenient science thing, but it's sci-fi. That's what we do. So it makes sense. And the heroic sacrifice moment here is the emotional catharsis that it was worth the wait. It was worth all of the time that has passed since then coming to this moment. Like, if you're a fan, you've known about this for a long time, and this really was a very cathartic moment. Definitely, it's worth watching just for this alone. Even if you have your criticisms of the show so far, like, just as a fan, seeing this finally play out and she finally fully redeems herself in the audience's eyes, and it's just amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And the fact that the changelings want to frame the Titan for everything going on is what basically gets Captain Shaw to agree to run away. It's a shocking moment. And, you know, I thought that last week's episode was the lowest point that we could go. Turns out we're kind of even lower now that Starfleet is fully compromised. And we basically end the episode here with Jack basically fulfilling the dream he had at the beginning. Something in this moment takes him over. He's at phaser point here, but he doesn't know that they're changelings. And yet he manages to unleash a tornado of violence, and against all odds manages to take out all four of them. And in very brutal ways, I might add. He seems to have superhuman strength. You know, he can pick one up, one-armed, and break his neck with seemingly no struggle whatsoever. And then we get this red door imagery yet again. And this CGI is great here. I'm really intrigued by what this red door is and all this stuff. I have no idea what any of this is. This is probably a shout out to something that I'm forgetting in Star Trek lore, so please fill me in if you know what that is. But yes. Oh, Sydney, that's her name. Sydney LaForge, that is her name. Now, thank you, subtitles, for reminding me. So they run away, and that is kind of the end of the episode. We kind of have a rebrief scene with Picard and Riker, where Picard says that he didn't even realize how much she meant to him. And then they discover the secret data on the earring. And then we get in touch with Worf and find out that Ro was the handler that we've been hearing so much about. So I think that's a great reveal, connecting the storylines together. And I'm really, really excited to see Worf on the main storyline and not just the B storyline. So I'm really excited about that for next week. And here we have the final scene with Beverly and Jack, where Jack reveals the darkness within him. Beverly sees through him that there is something going wrong. Beverly reveals that that he had nightmares as a child and wasn't sleeping, so I'm assuming that that's somehow related, that whatever's inside him has been there for a very long time, or it could just be a coincidence that he used to have nightmares and now he's got this problem. But I'm thinking that that's a setup, that he's been dealing with this for longer than he knows. But yeah, he basically says he doesn't remember the nightmares, which is another thing that makes me think it's going to be relevant. And he basically admits that he didn't know that the changelings were in fact changelings. And she looks at him with the kind of look of shock and horror. And that's the end of the episode. And I can't wait for next week, guys. I'm really excited about this show. Every episode I can't believe it's as good as it is, and the fact that this episode might be the best one yet. Wow, I'm stunned by this. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Are you as excited as I am? I would love to hear your theories about everything in the comment section down below. And with that, we will be back next week with more Star Trek Picard, and we will be reviewing a new show starring Bob Odenkirk on Sunday called Lucky Hank. He's playing kind of a cantankerous professor. I don't know much about it other than the one trailer I saw, but I know a lot of people on my channel subscribe for Better Call Saul videos, so we're gonna check that first episode out. And we're streaming a lot of Resident Evil 4 right now, leading up to the remake coming out. So we got a lot of content coming out for the channel, so I hope you will stay here with me. Definitely hit the sub button so you get notified and all that. You can hit the notification bell, etc. But with that, it's been your boy Shuggy, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.